Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as the ours, but hey, it's something. Now, this is going to be a big one because this is the final podcast of 2021. Ooh, very spooky. How the year has flown by. As such, this one is technically more of a reflection and technically a peek into the future. But, as the saying goes, we still have to get right into the news. First, we're going to be gearing up for one big thing for 2022 because, as people have pointed out, the Democratic retirement floodgates just burst open because as redistricting has been becoming more prevalent up to this point, now we're seeing a lot of Democratic incumbents openly vie to drop out of re-election bids. I mean, we've talked about it a lot already, but a couple more happened, like very recently. Stephanie Murphy, Alan Lowenthal, Albio Cedez, who's that other one? There was like one more, not Jackie Spire, she was, something, Lucille Raybould, I think? Yeah, I think it's her. I remember it was her because there were like some people I follow on Twitter that were like, oh no, she's gone. And by people I follow, I of course mean people who were in Congress. But as you can see, things are getting a bit iffy. And for the good and bad, because the more Democrats that retire in safety districts, the more places progressives have a chance to win. And as this happens, I have to keep going back to those states and try to verify, is this district still winnable? And some are, some aren't. I'm still trying to compile down a good list for target seats because it's changed a little bit since then, since the last time I made it public, which is on Twitter. But it's safe to say we still have a decent amount of chances, and I'm going to try and make sure that at the very least people know candidates that are in those seats, especially the ones that still are incredibly open, and hopefully we'll get some progressive wins in 2022, because many people, everybody keeps saying this, they see all these Democrats retiring, which means that not only will it be harder to keep the Democrats in Congress, but also this is an indication that maybe they see the writing on the walls and they're getting out so that they can just say, we did everything we could, but we'll have to wait and see how things pan out. Historically, it's never been his friend. This has never been a incumbent president's friend. It's never been the midterms. But we'll have to wait and see how things pan out. Speaking of midterms, there seems to be one interesting thing that may be happening in the midterms. One seat might get competitive. Now, of course, we have nothing to do with it yet. But here's what's happening. Larry Hogan is now actually entertaining the idea of Republicans pushing him to run for, Senate. Now, for those who don't know, Larry Hogan is the incoming governor of Maryland, who will not be running in the next election cycle because he is term limited. And, as such, many Republicans in his state have been trying to pressure him to run for Senate because they see him as the only way that they could win. And much like a lot of other blue state, people, he's historically turned them down. Like Phil Scott in Vermont has historically turned down people trying to push for him to run for governor. Christopher Sununu in New Hampshire has openly pushed against the idea of him running for governor. Charlie Baker in Massachusetts, I believe. Not Massachusetts. Freaking somewhere else. I don't remember where. Charlie Baker. Wherever Charlie Baker is. Maybe it is Massachusetts. But essentially, no, it's not Massachusetts. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I don't know. But essentially, they keep pushing for these, Democratic, Republican governors in these safe Democratic seats to run because these are actually the only people who can win in these seats. This is proven to be a fact if you look at the poll numbers. Baker, whatever his seat was, he was winning. So was Sununu. But they keep rejecting this idea. And I figured out why. The reason why is simply because if these safe blue governors, if these safe blue Republican governors run for a national stage, even if they win, once they win, they are open to scrutiny. Nobody will like them. And I know this because this is like, let's take an analysis. The moderate Republican governors, the moderate Republican senators are just hated. Murkowski and Collins used to be loved back when people liked the idea of like moderates. But now they don't love them anymore. Like, moderates in both parties are not loved anymore. Because people become more transparently aware of who they are. Like, we just see Manchin, and we just see, like, he's just caving to the Republicans. And people on the Republican side see, like, Collins and Murkowski as they're caving to the Democrats. But the Democrats don't see them that way. They see them as not even willing to take the steps that they need. Like, people who keep saying, like, oh, yeah, well, like, this is a good thing. Like, people think that, people were like, oh, at least Murkowski and Collins won't vote for, like, Kavanaugh or something. One of them did. And the other one voted present. We literally raised $1 million for the generic D who would run against her. But it seems that Hogan is at least hearing enough words to make him reconsider that idea. And one of the things that he's apparently been hearing was that the Republicans will, and I mean, this might actually prove something for Manchin, they've revealed, like, the talks have revealed that Republicans have basically told Hogan that if he runs, they will allow him to be the Manchin of the Republicans. Like, they say, like, we'll allow you to vote with the Democrats on basically everything. We just want the majority on paper. And many people have actually been accusing Joe Manchin of being that. He's been, like, many people, I forget what the term was. Paula Jean Swearengin said it, so she's not exactly that trustworthy, but, like, the term is, I think, like, the scapegoat person. But, like, basically the idea is, like, they choose one senator to basically oppose the candidate, like, to oppose the president on whatever. Like Biden chooses Manchin to oppose him on every step of the way. That way he can say, like, oh, I'm doing everything I can, but there's nothing I can do. This guy's holding my hand and telling me I can't do it. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. Maybe it's been historically proven to be accurate, but I don't know. But essentially, they basically said that they'll let Hogan be the Manchin for the Republicans, and Hogan's at least hearing that and going, will he run? I don't know. I'm not supporting him either way because I supported his opponent in the gubernatorial race, so why would I support him then? The only thing that would make him... Never mind, no. I wouldn't support him if he was a Democrat, I wouldn't support him if he was a Republican. So anyways, next story. Something positive, I think. President Biden extends student loan payment freeze through May 1st. On Wednesday, President Biden announced that pandemic relief for around 41 million federal student loan borrowers will be extended once again until May 1st. Loan payments, interesting accruals, collections, and defaulted federal student loans have all been on hold since the start of the pandemic. First, thanks to the CARES Act, then due to extensions by former President Donald Trump, former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and President Biden. Now, the reason that he's doing this is, I think, because this was a thing that was supposed to be done through, like, the Build Back Better plan, but since the Build Back Better plan has been essentially killed, Biden has to basically still sign off on the, we gotta withhold it, not yet, we can't have them pay us just yet, they still can't pay us. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a good thing, but it's like, it's barely anything. It's being extended for like another month. It's not like the Build Back Better plan is going to guarantee that permanently. Biden could cancel student loans right now if he wanted to, but he's not going to. So there's nothing much else to do. He's going to do the bare minimum, like I said, when I didn't vote for him. So essentially, that's all we got for that. Now, next story is a good news story, actually. The Kellogg's union, I have kind of been neglecting this. I don't necessarily know why, but I think it's because a lot of people have already been talking about it. But essentially, for those who don't know, the Kellogg's was holding a strike for 3 months. And I didn't cover them at all. I think maybe I covered the beginning. I'm pretty sure I didn't. But essentially, the union has negotiated a new contract and ended a 3-month strike. And Kellogg's released a statement that basically said, look, we will raise wages and benefits. And it was like, everybody was ecstatic. People liked it. We got a W. But here's the funny thing about this Kellogg's Union thing. They've been doing a lot of shady things to try and make sure that the union, which had a lot of public support, was all of a sudden not getting visible public support, or it wouldn't cut into their bottom dollar. Here are the two big things that you may have seen on social media, but like first we'll go over one that actually sort of like politics based. You see, Kellogg's, one of the big politics based things that they did, this is essentially what happened. They decided that they were going to hire scab workers, and they even point blank threatened, we will keep these scab workers in our factories permanently. Scab workers, for those who don't know, are workers that are not affiliated with a union and will flat out work against union rules. Like, it could be union organizers, not union organizers, like union employees that cross the picket line to go back to work, or it could be people who just work regardless of a union contract. You know, people who aren't a part of the union and are hired to replace a union worker. However, here's one problem. The scab workers were extremely bad at their jobs. People were sending pictures on social media basically saying like, hey, you know, this Rice Krispie treat has a fingernail in it. And it's like, oh, that stinks. And, you know, just generally stuff like that. But here's another thing. One thing that was found to be very suspicious. Kellogg's owns a lot of products, for those who don't know. They own Rice Krispies, they own a lot of cereal brands. One of the big ones that they own is Pop-Tarts. Well, one person pointed out the fact that they went to the store, went to get Pop-Tarts, or at least they were looking at Pop-Tarts, and they noticed that the Kellogg's logo was not on Pop-Tarts anymore. And they were like, wait, hold on, what? Why is the Kellogg's logo not part of Pop-Tarts anymore? And they contacted Kellogg's and basically said, why is this? And they said, well, we did some marketing, and we realized that the Kellogg's, they basically said that the Kellogg's brand, like, it didn't fit with the format of the box, so they got rid of the Kellogg's branding. Now, this was coincidentally around the time the Kellogg's union was getting a lot of vocal support, and people were spreading on social media, like, Kellogg's owns these brands, do not buy any of these brands. So people who may have heard of the Kellogg's Union and might have supported the Kellogg's Union, who just didn't know that they own Pop-Tarts on a first glance, would have just simply bought the Pop-Tarts. And, I mean, that stinks, but at least there's one big thing. We got a W. One thing that people have been pointing out is that unions are rising, and labor organizing is going to be pretty good. I see a lot of good futures for labor. Okay, so the next story is coming all the way from Hong Kong. The first thing that got this to my attention was there was, like, many people may remember this, but there's a famous piece that was done by a Danish artist, which was a sculpture that was commemorating the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. Now, here's the thing. This sculpture, like, it's called the Pillar of Shame. But here's the thing. The Pillar of Shame, it was put in Hong Kong, and it was, like, publicly like, whoa, this is a really big thing that has happened about Tiananmen Square and stuff. Yeah, well, it's being taken down, and the artist who bought the plot of land that the thing was supposed to be on, he's suing them for basically saying, like, hey, why are you tearing down this thing? This is my private property, so I own this, so you can't tear down. Now you may say, why is it being torn down now? Well, that actually stems from a recent election that Hong Kong had. For those who don't know, Hong Kong, much like Taiwan and Tibet, are territories in China that have very strained-ish relationships with China. Some people view those territories as they should be free to determine whatever they want, and there are some people who view them as they should be just considered part of China. And this has gotten very politicized. You know, historically, people have been saying, like, free Tibet and stuff. Taiwan is like claim like we are the true China, and Hong Kong received massive amounts of protests during 2019. Well, recently they held an election, and their election was very interesting because right before the election, there was a massive crackdown. Basically, here's how Hong Kong elections worked previously. Hong Kong elections essentially had like 3 sections of like voting blocks. There were 3 sort of things in their specific like legislative branch. The first thing was super seats. There were like 5 super seats. The 5 super seats were just elected normally. You'd go in the voting booth, you'd see the candidate you like, you'd vote for them. Whoever gets the most votes wins. But then there was a section of it that was elected via proportional representation. It wasn't explicitly proportional representation, but it was like basically proportional representation. And then there was one last section that was like a group of people that are elected, like they are specific seats. They're called functional constituencies. Those seats are basically people of specific industries elect certain people to represent them. Now you might say, what does that mean? Well, let's say, for example, let's say you are the leader of a business that is like manufacturing, like dolls. You get to have a vote in the specific seat that elects people to serve dolls, like people who, like essentially if you're a top business owner, you get to vote for a specific seat that is catered to your business, fishing, manufacturing, etc. Now, essentially, that is just how the Hong Kong system worked. And that seemed okay at first, but then political leanings started breaking things up. Now there are a lot of political parties in Hong Kong, but essentially what happened was it essentially branched off into 3 coalitions. The Super Hong Kong Nationalist Coalition, that was essentially just like, I don't care about any of these issues, we support Hong Kong and Hong Kong alone. Then there was what it was called the Pro-Beijing Coalition, which is the people who are super friendly to the Chinese Communist Party and want to basically have Hong Kong remain a part of China. And there's the pro-democracy thing, which essentially wants Hong Kong to have more democratic say, have it be less dependent on China. I guess technically the anti-Chinese bloc. However, what ended up happening for this election cycle was that they basically changed things up. First, those 5 seats that I said were elected just via the people, yeah, those are gone. They took some of the seats that were part of the proportional representation and then moved that, as well as a couple of functional constituency seats, and then pushed them into a new group of seats, which would be elected via the official election committee of Hong Kong. Now, the election committee of Hong Kong is literally the people that are chosen by the Chinese Communist Party to choose people to be in those seats. It's literally just not democratic at all. Now you might say, okay, well that's weird, but I guess that's somewhat fine. But here's the thing. The way it was divided, they specifically took a lot of proportional seats away from the proportional side, but took very little of the functional constituency seats, because the functional constituency seats, since they're run by business owners, they are sympathetic and supportive of the Chinese Communist Party, because as people who are on the top, like the top financial stuff of Chinese, they will be naturally friendly to the government. But they also added one more caveat. The caveat was that they instituted a couple of laws that would basically make it so that the pro-democracy parties could not run. First, they instituted a massive crackdown on the protests, which made sure that they jailed basically all of the major democratic, like, people. And also, when you go to register as a candidate in the election, you have to be specifically super patriotic. If you are not dubbed to be patriotic enough, you are basically barred from running in the election. So literally, anybody who openly ran on, "We do not support the Chinese Communist Party," did not get to run. And this, of course, led to a massive amount of people who didn't vote in this election. This had a turnout of a little bit over 30%. And when I say a little over 30%, I mean literally a little over 30%. It was 30.62. And this is just very blatant. And we're going to see the same typical people, who's super supportive of the Communist Party of China. Just simp for them. There's not much else I can say. It stinks, and I hope that people of Hong Kong get their say, whatever it may be. Okay, so anyways, now we're going to move on to... This is something a little interesting. I'm going to talk about... Because this episode is going to come out on the second day of Kwanzaa. Now, you might say, why are you talking about Kwanzaa? Isn't this Christmas time? Well, it's also Kwanzaa time, Now, the reason I'm talking about Kwanzaa is because there was one thing I learned about Kwanzaa recently that is just really? This is a thing? Okay, so let me explain. Kwanzaa, for those who don't know, is an annual celebration of African American culture that is held from December 26th to January 1st, culminating in a communal feast called Karamu, usually held on the sixth day. It was created by Maulana Karenga, based on African harvest festival traditions from various parts of Africa, including West and Southeast Africa. Kwanzaa was first celebrated in 1966. It was essentially made by people who were extremely prominent in the Pan-African Black Power movement of the 60s, and was basically made as a way to try and this is essentially a holiday basically for African Americans who do not feel like they are welcome in the more Anglo-European sort of holiday traditions. Kwanzaa is celebrated very similar to other ones. There are 7 candles in a thing called a kimara, and each of them represent the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, also known as the Nugzo Saba. The 7 principles are as follows: Umoja, unity, to strive for and to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Kujichalgulia, self-determination, to define and name ourselves, as well as to create and speak for ourselves. Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Ujama, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Nia, purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Kumba, creativity, to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community and more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. And Imani, faith, to believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Now, generally learning about that is fun, but I did get very interested the fact that one of the terms Ujama literally was cooperative economics, as it was described on Wikipedia. In reality, it literally means familyhood in Swahili, and Ujama is actually a socialist ideology that formed the basis of Julius Nyerere's social and economic development policies in Tanzania after it gained independence from Britain in 1961. So, Kwanzaa is literally a socialist holiday. Honestly, I should have expected that. But of course, you don't think about this when you're at some point. I didn't learn... my interpretation of Kwanzaa was just that it was a quote-unquote scam. And it was actually Everybody Hates Chris that taught me that. Because it was the guy who founded it was in jail. But it's okay. But it's just... if you celebrate Kwanzaa, that's good on you. I don't celebrate Kwanzaa. Maybe I should. Nah, it's an African related holiday, so I probably shouldn't. But it's the same thing with like Hanukkah. Like, I mean, if I'm with a person who celebrates Kwanzaa, it's not like I'm gonna be like, Kwanzaa, ew. But it's like, if I'm with some friends and they're like, we celebrate Kwanzaa, and then I'm there too, it's like, why not? I mean, we all celebrate holidays in our own unique way. What's the big deal? We're all in this world together. And to shift that away to talk about me, main topic of this video, if you could call it a topic even, this is literally just the episode of reflection and projection as we look to the past and look to the future and see what is going to come of this channel in 2022 while also taking a look at what happened in 2021. Now, you may have seen what I posted in like a couple of days ago, my script videos, but I'm going to repeat some of the stuff I said there because I actually had more. And we can actually use this as a reflection of not only just the past year, but also a lot more. First, we're going to focus on stuff that happened only in this year. I finally did some highly requested videos. My Hiram Johnson video, my Fusionist video, my John B. Anderson video. Well, the first and third one were very highly requested. I remember Fusionism was requested, but it wasn't highly requested. But I got a lot of people, especially John B. Anderson. That one was extremely highly requested. Every day I got a request to say do the John B. Anderson video, and yeah, I did it. To summarize this year in regards to main series videos, this was essentially the year of requests. I did a lot of requests this year, as I mentioned before, those three, but I also the Politics and Lost Media series. The mini-series within a mini-series. That was actually a request as well. What else was a request this year? I guess technically, some of my podcasts could be considered requests. I don't know if they were requested, but I guarantee at least one of them was. This year, I officially christened a brand new series on this channel, Politics in Media. It's honestly been... I really like the idea of every so often I do a new series. It's a thing to liven things up, get people a new perspective, especially considering this is a way for me to talk about another interest of mine, movies, TV, that kind of stuff, because I can also analyze it through the lens of this channel. And also, if this channel goes dead, I can actually just be okay, so my criticisms can be used and I can move on and do something else. Off the YouTube, this year I actually made a consistent independent political report series. For the shilling I keep doing up for the independent political report, I noticed that I wasn't necessarily doing a good amount on that page, but then I actually decided to do something very interesting on that page, where it's basically the series. It doesn't have a name. It's essentially the title is always like this: political figure, thing about them. It's I'll write an article briefly talking about a political figure. I did one on Hiram Johnson, I did one on Vito Marcantonio, I did one on Norman Thomas, Floyd B. Olson, and I'll do more at some point. But I essentially try to do it on their birthday, so it's at the beginning, it's on this day blank years ago. That way I can try and get people to pay attention to the IPR page, because I want to get RPR back on the run. It's a good idea. Too bad it hasn't really been getting a lot of good attention that it should. This one is interesting that I didn't mention, because I think this one might actually be controversial to say. I killed a long-standing left Twitter account. I killed Grumpy Birdie Sanders. I will maintain that is a very big accomplishment. Grumpy Birdie Sanders was a huge voice on the online left for years, and I ended him like that. And I know it's me. I 100% know it's me, because the timeline just adds up perfectly. I told the original person who drew that picture and said, hey, there's someone using your art to basically make an entire Twitter persona around themselves. They say, hey, Grumpy, what the F, bro? And then Grumpy disappears. And it's just a very interesting story. I find it very interesting, even more so, because in that whole year, we never knew who he was. There was no name, no voice, no nothing. It shows truly how fragile we are. All that fame and power can just end like that. Another thing that ended this year was, I think, my relationship with the eclectic radical. I think the dumb idiots that thought he was poning me by saying, like, oh, Marie Fonseca, her saying that freaking supporting the Capitol riots is actually a good thing. Now he's gonna go on this lamb by like, actually, if she tweets support of Kyle Rittenhouse, you're bad. It's like, bro, you literally simped for a person who said 100% quote, I support Capitol Hill rioters right now. That is what she said, and you supported that. But whatever, that happened. Not much else I can do about that. I made 101 episodes of the main series on this channel. I made 101 highly edited, highly researched, highly thought out videos on the channel. And I think I'll always do the occasional meme video, or that anti-Semitism video could technically count because I had to research all those things, so maybe 102, but you know what I mean. The episodes, 101 episodes. I don't know when I'm gonna reach the next 100 milestone, but it'll happen at one point. I made 187 podcast episodes if you include the one that I'm recording right now. I surpassed 600 followers on Twitter. I surpassed 600 subscribers on YouTube. And of course, to top it all off, I finally figured out a way to make money off of this YouTube channel. $12 a month is very good. If you don't have to worry about paying bills or feeding yourself or paying rent. Wink, wink. But essentially, that is all the things that we accomplished this year. But this channel has been through quite a lot in all of the years of doing this show. We made a lot of friends, made a lot of enemies. Some friends turn to enemies, while others just drop you like a fly. And they will hide the, things that they made with you behind a paywall, John Munitz. This year, I also looked back on some of, the previous things. One thing that I keep looking back on is Charles Clark, one of the, early people to, give me a platform on their show. And I finally pieced together the mystery of where he went. I'm saying it on the show so I can get off my chest, and I won't have to worry about that anymore. That's why I'm just shoving it in this episode right now, without any credence of anything of the sort. For those who have absolutely zero clue what I am talking about, Charles Clark was a communist YouTuber that hosted a show called The Pluribus Project, and hosted a couple of other shows with other YouTubers like Savage Joy and Now Welcome, and he basically pushed for communist stuff. He was essentially the early version of the Tulsa left, but not even Tulsi, kind of. It was essentially part of the super anti-imperialist left kind of thing. But he came off a lot more genuine, I guess. He gave people like me and John Munitz a platform on the show, even though he should have been against us. But he wasn't that kind of guy. He was genuinely nice, actually gave a crap about the issues he cared about, and he knew that at the end of the day, a sock dem would probably be more beneficial to him in the long run. But essentially what happened was, one day, just out of the blue, he disappeared. I've talked about it before in the show, there's just one day he just disappeared. He just stopped posting on his YouTube channel, he stopped replying to your DMs, he stopped replying when you added him on Twitter, he just left. But then one day, out of the blue, around a year later, he came back. Just out of the blue, he posted a YouTube video explaining where he was, and trigger warning, his explanation for why he left was pretty drastic. He explained that he has suffered from PTSD due to abuse that he suffered from a female family member, if I remember correctly, and that something caused him to resurge in that sphere, that made something happen to him that made him re-entered his mind, and he just had to leave. And he was sorry to all the people that he just left and without giving any second glance to, but he was just not in the emotional state to really talk about that. Understandable. And then a little bit afterwards, even though he kept trying to say he's fine now, or he was trying to do better now, and he was trying to get back into the groove of things, he just flat out deleted all of his YouTube channel, and everything was gone, including the interview that I did with him, And all the other platforms, it seems that he, like, something happened to make them not be able to play the videos anymore, so he just flat out left the internet again. Which is fine. Whatever he chooses to do, that's acceptable. That is his perspective. And a normal person would have accepted that and left it well enough alone. But since I'm not normal, and my inquisitive mind gets the better of me, it just kept eating in my head. Why? What made him leave? Can I find out the answer? Can I see if there's proof of anything that would make me figure out the truth? And then at one point, I was thinking over it again and thinking of all the drama that he was in through, because he did go through a lot of drama. He's a person like everyone else, so he's been through drama. And then it clicked. I figured out the answer. This is my 100% verifiable proof in my head that this is what happened. And this is 100% you should... I just have to say it because I can't hold it any longer. I just need to say it out loud. I remember right before he left Twitter, and he left the first time around, he got into a public falling out with one of his two co-hosts on their other shows, Joy of Savage Joy. And here's what happened. Savage Joy, she apparently, like, in the DMs with Charles Clark, made an offhand remark based on a dream that she had that involved her and Charles. And Charles was just so vehemently opposed, so vehemently hating on what she told him, that he went on a public rant against her and was saying, like, she was trying to push sick, twisted sexual fantasies about herself and him together. Joy defended her remarks by saying that she was just simply making an offhanded remark, and that since she thought they were friends, they were open enough that they could talk about that. But of course, Charles did not see it that way. And coincidentally, not that long afterwards, that is when he disappeared. So that, of course, I don't want to say that aloud, because I just don't want to say it out loud, but you can already piece together what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And I've gotten it off my chest. It's already obvious what happened. I can finally relieve myself realizing that I can finally be like, I'm the smartest boy in the room. I figured it out, and people can know I figured it out. Whatever. So anyways, let's move off from the past. The past is the past. There's not much else we can do about the past. We can only focus on the future, as the title of this episode clearly states. We are going to be discussing a little bit about what this is going to happen to this channel come 2022. I'm going to delete it. No, I'm not going to delete it, obviously. That would be stupid. I would never delete this channel, even if there was like a massive public falling out and I was like booed off the internet. I'd keep the channel up for posterity's sake. I don't believe in like hiding the past or anything of the sort. I think information should be out there. People should be able to see this channel whether they like it or hate it. So now let's look upon the future and figure out what we will do for the future. First, one major thing that's going to happen is podcast episode 200. That's something that is going to happen next year. I already figured it out. I timed it. I looked at the dates. That's something that's going to happen. But the thing is, I don't know what I'm going to do for it. I guess I'm pretty sure I'll figure out something on that day. But the thing is, ideally, I would want it to be streamed. But I know that streaming and me are not necessarily the best of friends, so probably not going to be something that's going to happen. Otherwise, I'll have to do something else that's big. And I know what you're thinking, there's one big thing you could do, but I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm going to do. Speaking of 2022, one thing that's going to happen in 2022 is elections. Elections are, of course, going to be a primary focus of 2022, and as a politics-oriented YouTube channel, of course, I'm going to talk about them. Of course, the main series will not be focusing on them. It will be the podcast that will be focusing on them. And what elections are I'm going to be talking about? Well, I've essentially really only figured out there's really only 5 or so elections that I'm actually kind of interested in. Those are the ones I'm going to talk about, or at least the ones that I'm going to dedicate full-ish episodes on, kind of. the Philippines, Colombia, South Korea, France, and Brazil. Those are the biggest elections that seem to have like enough meat to have like a full Fireside chat main topic dedicated to it. I've already started looking into a couple of them. Each of them hold flavor and spice in their own way. Philippines is going to be interesting because the incumbent president, who was supposedly a lefty but then became like a massive righty, is not going to be running for re-election, and we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. Colombia and Brazil are, of course, big pink-tide countries. France, because the Yellow Vest movement was technically supposed to be a big thing, but it turns out it's not going to be a big thing. I might have something else for the France election as well, depending on how things pan out. But essentially, like, and South Korea, because South Korea, I just found something really interesting about the South Korean election that I found interesting. It's just the way the election is. Like, I've seen the candidacies, and I'm like, oh, this might be interesting, so I'm going to talk about it. But of course, there's one other country's elections I'm going to be talking about as well. The good old US of A. However, the difference is, since I am in the United States, I'll be focusing on that one for a lot of episodes. So it's not going to be like one episode is going to be fully dedicated to the US politics. In fact, there's actually probably going to be multiple episodes that are going to be focused on the US political scene in specifics. You know, like there's probably going to be one where it's like, here's how the Senate's going to pan out. And then like at the end, it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to make a video about like the actual results. Like when the results are fully done. Like the next episode of this podcast is literally going to be about the 2022 elections, but from one perspective. This is going to be like a very early one, obviously, so there's going to be ones that are going to be like when things are fully realized, and, you know, just, you'll see, because as the year goes on, you'll see how it goes. One thing that is not necessarily YouTube related, but it's going to be like personality related, is I am going to attempt to not get into Twitter beefs as much. Now, I know this is going to be very difficult, because just how I am, it is really hard for me to just ignore stupidity and not make fun of it. It is really hard for me to do that. So, it will be difficult, but I'm going to attempt to, at the very least, try not to get into, at the very least, pointless Twitter tiffs. Because one big problem with Twitter tiffs is that you get some that are literally just like, oh, these are people who have a difference in opinion. But then you get other ones that are literally just like, how could you actually, this is actually just not an argument. This is literally just, you're posting literal nonsense and expecting me to give you an actual nuanced argument. So, I mean, hopefully I will try to be a lot more calm on Twitter. But of course, you'll still get the fire when you get the fire. Because if I were to stop it 100%, then it wouldn't be me. The next one that is going to be interesting is that, I'm just going to say right now, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on politics in media in 2022. Like a majority of the episodes that will be coming out in 2022 will be politics and media. Now you might say, why is that? Well, simply put, it's just something new. It's something new to do. Something to give 2022 its own feel. Like every year I sort of had like a theme for the videos. The first year was basically main, like actual normal, like, oh, this is just me getting my foot off the ground. Then there was like the Mexican presidential election series. Then there was like 2020 was like election year. 2021 was like the request year. This one is basically going to be the primary focus of politics and media, especially since I have a lot of interesting ideas for politics and media. I don't want to give them away, but, you know, they will be interesting nonetheless. What's going to happen in 2022 as well is that I'm going to be doing a very prominent party history video. And basically, while I'm on this topic, I'll just say that I'm basically going to try and make an actual sort of schedule for the series, like for like the entirety of the channel. Basically, like, well, no, like February is Black History Month. That's where I focus on African American related topics. June is Pride Month. October is Halloween. Like, those sort of going to be like the schedule for the entire year. But each series videos is going to have like a sort of like mini schedule of their own. where you're essentially going to see that one is definitely going to be like the big one. Like, no matter how many party history videos I do in 1 year, it's going to be noticeable that there's going to be one that I'm very impassioned about. And for other ones, there will be another big-ish video. Like, I mean, I'll just say right now, there's going to be a very big video in the other main series videos that is not politics and media, but there is going to be one that is kind of big politics and media. At least the subject is big, but it's not necessarily like the video length, but some it will be video length, like the party history video that you all know what it is. It's essentially going to be probably going to be the longest one. And then the other one that I've been hinting at for like the big politics and media is also going to be probably very long. The idea is like there's going to be a big-ish video that I'm going to do. And that big video will of course be very big, both in substance and in length. The podcast, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen because things will just happen when they happen, but it will be noticeable when the big videos happen. Here's another interesting idea that I had, but I don't know if I'm going to do it for 2022 or ever. But it's just an idea that I had in my head, just like for extra things, where maybe I would go back and redo some old episodes of, like, at the very least some series, like, you know, like my Libertarian, well, not even my Libertarian Party video, that one was pretty good, like my Reform Party video, my Constitution Party video, my Green Party video, the early Mexican presidential election series, like, basically go back and do a couple of them over again, and maybe for the Mexican presidential election series, I had the idea of maybe, like, actually releasing versions of that series in Spanish, you know, because probably be more beneficial for people in Mexico who want to learn about this stuff to have it in Spanish so that they can actually understand it, or at the very least include Spanish subtitles in the, like, series itself, you know, just so the people can actually get it. But the thing is, I don't know if that's going to happen. Probably won't, because that's a lot of work, and I don't think that would work in the sense that it would not necessarily fit with a schedule. Those ones would literally have to come out literally just whenever. So you'll have to wait and see if that's something that I actually plan on doing. Another thing that can happen in 2022 is, it just sort of happened this way, but there's going to be a lot of list-like videos where I list things off rather than having, like, the actual video be like a normal thing. I don't know why. That just sort of happened because there are a couple of lists that I did want to do this year that I felt that really should be done. Topics that were interesting to me. So I would really be interested in seeing that again. You'll see them, and they'll be pretty good. Another thing that I wanted to do next year was do a lot more collaborations. And I literally said this on Twitter, like, hey, what are some channels you'd be interested in seeing me collab with? And a lot of people said, like, what do you mean by collab? And I say, I literally mean anything that involves collaboration. Like, it could be I make an appearance on your channel and do, like, a guest voice. I could be, like, you could interview me for your show if you're, like, a little small channel and you want to get something off the ground, and you're like if you're a channel with 10 subs and you're like, I want some of that 645 sub count. You know, I'll be down to be interviewed on a show. If you're a larger creator and you like my channel, and you're like, hey, what if you came on my channel and we did a thing? I'd be down for that as well. One thing I would really actually like to do in the next cycle is, well, not even the next cycle, it's like the next thing, like the next year. One collaboration that I'd be very interested in doing is a debate, like an actual legitimate, like, debate on something. I don't know what. I'm open to hearing people see, like, what to debate on. I'll of course turn it down if I don't care or think that I would be a good person to debate the topic. But if it's a topic that I think I'd be good at, and I think would be an interesting topic nonetheless, I'd be down to do it. And the last thing that would be a very interesting thing for me to plan for in 2022 is I plan to try and hit 1,000 subs. I really think it would be a good thing to hit 1,000 subs just to either boost my ego or get a bit more street cred, but I really would like to do that. And I know I probably just said that last thing was supposed to be the last thing, But in fact, it's actually going to be one more thing. For next year, I actually plan to reveal a secret. Now, what's the secret? This isn't anything bad, and I'm not technically revealing anything bad about it, but it's just something very interesting that I thought would again, interesting to see. You'll have to find out what it is, and when I reveal it, you'll see something interesting about me. To get the elephants in the room out of the way, I'm not revealing a crime, I'm not revealing anything bad, and I'm not doing a face reveal. I'm not revealing some hidden political affiliation that I haven't said yet. I'm literally just revealing something that really is unimportant in the grand scheme of things. I'm only revealing it just because I want to reveal it because I think it'd be funny, but you'll have to wait till next year to figure out what it is. Thanks for watching for this year. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when a future video that comes out. And if you want some more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check out my articles on the Independent Political Report, or consider supporting me on Patreon. See you again in 2022.